What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Bucco Territory, presented to you by the File Territory Network. My name is Noah Hiles, and joining me, as always, are my co-hosts Josh Harrison, a.k.a. Jay Hay, and Platinum Key, a.k.a. Mark. You're watching this on a Monday, and you might be wondering why. And that's because from now until the end of the regular season, we will be doing 3 shows a week here on
Let's
Bucco
go.
Territory, coming out every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. There's also going to be a little bit of a different structure now that the off season is over. We're into the full swing of spring training, and opening day is less than a month away. We're going to have different segments. So for our Monday shows, at least for the foreseeable future, it's going to be broken up a little differently. For today's show, we're going to have a new intro segment called Key of the Week, and that's where our boy Platinum Key hits on a storyline or topic that he's focusing on heading into a new week of Pirates baseball. Around the World will be a segment we use every episode throughout the entire World Baseball Classic to talk about the international tournament that's about to take place. That's also starting this week. And then All Hands on Deck is just a traditional segment that we will talk about that to close out the show, just something all three of us can discuss. This week's All Hands on Deck will be about Oneil Cruz. But before we get into all of that, like I said, Platinum Key is going to start us off with his Key of the Week. Mark, what are you watching this week?
Yeah, so MLB Network was interviewing Don Kelly earlier this week, and they asked him what had surprised him most, or what was standing out to him so far in spring training. And my key of the week this week is going to mimic him there. It's the position battle between Nick Gonzales and Nick Yorke. Two infield utility guys who have impressed so far in spring training. I mean, Nick Gonzalez's OPS is over 1,000 right now. Nick Yorke's had some pretty clutch at bats with some RBIs. So both of them are making their case. And I think one of the intriguing things is kind of reading between the lines is that if Nick Gonzales and Nick Yorke are battling for a position on this Pirates roster, that kind of leads me to believe that there might be a Connor Griffin plan in place a little bit. And so they're trying to figure out who's going to be that utility backup infielder between Nick Gonzales and Nick Yorke. And so, Josh, one of the questions I wanted to ask you is, how do those position battles in spring, impact the team? Is it competitive? Are you like working with your teammate, collaborating? And how does that push you to become a better player?
It's all the above. And me personally, I can't speak for everybody, but I don't think there was ever anything that was like not for the betterment of the team. Yes, there's competition with, guys in spring training that may be going for the same job, but at the end of the day, when you've been around the game long enough, you understand injuries happen. It's 29 other teams, but at the end of the day, you got to take care of what you have to take care of, and it's a healthy thing when you got guys that are battling for that position, especially if they're, showing that they can play well. That means the organization is in a good position, a tough spot, because obviously somebody's going to be the odd man out. But as I just said, there are things that happen in the future that are you can't see. So just because you might not break with the team, don't mean within that first week or first month, somebody goes down. And when you got two utility guys that are battling it out, and if they're playing well, I think that just shows the depth of what we've talked
Mm-hmm.
about is, the lack thereof. Right now is showing that might be a good thing to have, especially what you're saying. It might be something looming if they're battling for a position. There might be something, between the lines that we don't really need to speak on. But at the same time, utility is a position that has shown that is important for every team because you need somebody that can bounce around and, help out in pinches.
If I could weigh in on this too, Mark, when you talk about reading between the lines, knowing this team, the fact that Donnie highlighted this specific duo as a battle interests me more than just the Griffin angle. Because Nick Gonzales, I mean, this is a guy, he was a lock to make the team last year, and you
Right.
figured that would be the case again this year. So I think by Donnie comparing him to Nick Yorke in a battle, I think it's trying to light a fire under him, just saying, like, you know what, hey, let's go. Like, you think you're going to make this team, right? You think, but let I want you to be prepared to be not only
Right.
our opening day shortstop if Connor's not ready, but I want you to be the best utility option as well. I want you to try to be winning every spot right now. And then on the flip side of it, I think the Nick Yorke part of it is also interesting because Nick Yorke is a guy who almost made the big league team out of camp last year, but didn't see any time in the major leagues until the AAA season was nearly over.
Right.
So I think by comparing him to a guy like Nick Gonzales, who is, I still think, a lock to make this major league roster. I think it's more likely that both of them make the roster than only one of them does. So, yeah, I think he's saying to Nick Yorke, like, look, like, these are, if you want to be an everyday big leaguer, you need to be as good, if not better, than Nick Gonzales. That's the standard for this team now. It's not just, oh, you had a good spring, we're going to throw you in there. We expect all of you to be performing at a high level, not just in spring training, but like we expect you to be a replacement level player at minimum, because that's kind of what Nick Gonzales has been throughout his big league career. So I like that. I like that. I think strategic rhetoric there by Don Kelly. That's a veteran manager move there from a guy who's hasn't even managed a full year in the big leagues. I probably learned that from Jim Leland if I had to guess. But I like that you pointed this out, Mark.
Man, that's two different situations where, as you said, light a fire under Nick. Don't take anything for granted. Gonzales, I should say, because both of their names are Nick, right?
Yeah, the battle of Nicks.
And then for Yorke on the other side is also, as you said, hadn't got much big league time, but to compare him to that guy's like, hey, keep doing what you're doing. You can, you'll find your way on this team. So two different perspectives to look at it, but also, as I said, when you're looking at it that way from up top, it's two guys that they look at that can help this team.
All right, we're going to move on now to our next segment, Around the World, which is where we talk some World Baseball Classic, which starts this week, starts in a couple days. And you can catch it all on Fox. Stream the World Baseball Classic live from March 6th through 14th and start your 7-day free trial today at fox1.com. The guy we're going to talk about for this show's Around the World is a guy who took the bump on Sunday afternoon for the Pirates, Antwone Kelly. Mark, we were talking before the show. I think Antwone Kelly is an arm that we're probably not talking about enough. And I get why. Like, when you look at the list of arms the Pirates have, I think we're going to go ahead and talk about Paul Skeens and Bubba Chandler and Mitch Keller before a guy who, was in Double-A last year pretty much, or got to Double-A by the end of the year, I should say. But this is a very intriguing talent, Mark. He just got added in, Josh. He got added to the 40-man roster. Baseball America has him as the number 8 prospect in the Pirates system. He's a guy with a fastball that flirts with 100 miles an hour, and he will be pitching for Team Netherlands in the World Baseball Classic. Born in Aruba, which you don't really run into a lot of players who were born, major leaguers who were born in Aruba. But Josh, I want to ask you, you've been around guys, both position players and pitchers, who had the opportunity to play in the World Baseball Classic before they were big leaguers. How valuable can that experience be to be pitching in a major league park and against major league talent when there's something more on the line than just your typical spring training game?
Oh, man, I can't speak for those guys, but I'm sure, one, it's an experience of a lifetime. It's a little different, in spring training, as you said. It may be a spring training outing. And you might face some big leaguers, you might face some minor league guys, but at the end of the day, you're working on something where you're playing in the World Baseball Classic. Even if you're facing, another minor league, or if you're facing these big league guys, adrenaline is different. You're ramped up. But at the same time, the at bat, it's going to be different than what it would be in spring training, because in a classic, you're playing to win. I'm not saying in spring training you're not playing to win, but we've already had this discussion in spring training. Guys may be working on something. I want to see pitches, or I want to try to, take the ball the other way. Where World Baseball Classic guys are taking a game situation. So when you have a guy like Antwone Kelly, as you mentioned, who made his way to Double-A by the end of last year, he's going to get his crack at facing some big leaguers. And, it's not a spring training at bat. Granted, it still doesn't count towards his stats, but it's something that'll give you a little idea of, what's to come, because adrenaline's going to be pumping. He's playing for more than just pitching that at bat. He's going to be playing for the country he's representing, and I think those are moments that when you watch, you see the excitement that everybody plays with, because whether they are a 10-year vet or somebody that's in single A, playing for Team Italy, guys are going hard, and I think you get the most out of everybody. So that's why I said I think it's a cool experience, and you get to see a little bit of what could come in the future.
Mark, if you had to guess right now, do we see Antwone Kelly in the major leagues this season?
I was just about to say, it would not shock me one bit. I think he's a guy that if any injuries happen, you can either bring him up to the rotation, you can have him pitch long relief out of the bullpen, ease him in kind of like they did with like Bubba Chandler to start last year, where they had him come out of the bullpen a few times before he would make a couple starts. And I think Antwone Kelly's deserved that. This is a guy that they just added to the 40-man this offseason. I think he was going to be Rule 5 eligible, but he earned that roster spot. And so on any other team where they don't have a rotation that's as dominant as the Pirates, this would be a name fans would be clamoring to see this year.
Yeah.
So it stinks that he's kind of gotten lost in the mix of how awesome this rotation is. But that's a blessing. So, looking forward to see Antwone Kelly this year. Do you think he's going to make it up, Noah?
You know what? I've thought about it a little bit. Part of me thinks that this is a very attractive trade piece. And if the Pirates end up being buyers this season, this is the guy to dangle if you're looking to get somebody that's more than a rental. Right. And that's kind of how teams like the Pirates approach the deadline, right? They always want those controllable assets. This is a guy he'll probably be a top 100 prospect in baseball by midseason. Like I anticipate him probably starting in AA, being in AAA before June. And then with his pitch profile and everything, and just the reputation of the Pirates system, frankly, with pitching development, there's going to be a lot of eyeballs on him. So I think he might be a major leaguer elsewhere before here. I'm not suggesting, I don't know anything that if he's a trade piece or anything, and I don't think they're trying to trade him right now, even if so, just because they're trying to figure out their own roster. But I'm saying that could be a quicker route for the major leagues. But a way I could see him getting here, injuries aside, even if you don't have anything catastrophic and an absolute desperate need to the major league rotation, is when the roster expands in September, this is the type of guy you probably want to add, right? Like so you get sense, it's an extra arm that can give you length and can give you depth in the bullpen. He can be a piggyback guy. He can be a starter in a doubleheader, or even a true starter, because that's what he'll be in the minor leagues. But with his pitch profile, you bring him in throwing 100, and you could say, "Listen, you got 5 batters. Let it eat." It could be really fun. And you've seen that a lot of winning teams do that in the postseason. When they're on the precipice of the postseason, you bring up that young live arm.
That fresh arm. Yep.
Yeah, it's fresh, and it's a guy that you could say, all right, we had a rain delay yesterday, so that means we're going to have to play 5 games in these next 5 days. We don't get an off day this week.
We
need a fresh arm. We're going to need you to eat up some innings, and you're coming in here fresh, live bullets. Yes. Everybody else has been grinding through a big league season. You've been chomping at the bit to get here. That's been a thing that, you've seen the Tampa Bay Rays do that for years, where they brought up David Price as like the example everyone likes to bring up. But it's frequently done. And if the Pirates are in a place to contend, that's their ace in hand right there, where they can call him up and probably have a multi-facet asset on the mound in Antwone Kelly. So that's how I would anticipate him being used. Or if they're not good this year, then he'll be here because they're probably trading some pitching away, and they're going to be sellers. So either way, yes, I do think he will be a major leaguer, either for the Pirates because they're doing really well and competing, or they blew it up, or maybe they trade him and he's a big leaguer somewhere else. So now we'll wrap that up. Now it's time for our final segment, all hands on deck. This is where we just have a nice little open discussion. And I want to talk about Oneil Cruz. Oneil Cruz had a really good effort Saturday over the weekend. He had a home run. Entering Sunday's game, I believe he was hitting like 600 or something in Grapefruit League play, which, it's like 4 games. So good for him. And honestly, I feel like Oneil hits the ball well every spring. It's getting him to consistently do it after spring that is the problem. And that's kind of what I want to bring up. Oneil Cruz has obviously been scrutinized a ton since he's arrived. And then he's also been defended a ton since he's arrived. We're reminded about how patient we need to be with this guy because of the interesting way that he did make the major leagues, right? Where there was probably a little bit of service time tomfoolery going around there. And then his first supposed full season was in 2023, breaks his ankle on Easter, and he's out for the season. 2024 has a solid first year in the big leagues. 2025 is supposed to be his breakout year, but he's at a new position, and it just never really got going for him. So I bring him up to ask you two, are we at a point now where the patience should be over for Oneil Cruz? Is this a year where it's essentially make or break? Are you anything more than what you've shown us? Are you going to be a StatCast darling, or are you going to be an actual star? Is this the year for that? I'll let you start, Mark.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's a more polarizing player on the Pirates roster than Oneil Cruz, because you, it's just such a world of extremes where you see the laser home runs. I mean, has the hardest hit ball in MLB history that's been tracked by Statcast. He has a rocket of an arm. He has speed. He has all these tools that you can't teach. And then you'll see the mental mistakes where we just saw in spring training where he lost the ball in the sun and completely misplayed it. And it's like, you've been playing outfield for a year. That's not something that you should be doing at this point. So it's frustrating, but I feel like he does deserve some patience still, just because the talent that he has is so unique. Where that bat speed, if he can be patient and learn how to hit lefties, there's only a couple players that are similar to him, and they're perennial MVP candidates. So I feel like you got to be a little patient with him. It was nice to see this spring him getting opportunities to hit like left-handed pitching, for example. He only had 11 hits off of left-handed pitching last year, and he already has 2 in spring training this year. I know that was like a big focus of his off season. So if he can get more consistent, stay in the lineup more, and help this team more often, that's awesome. And if he can do that, I mean, he could be an all-star. He has the potential for that.
Josh?
You got to keep the patience. How old is he? You said 26?
He's 26.
26. 26 is still young. I know in today's game they feel like, oh, you should have everything figured out, but
Yeah.
let's be honest. No way. You mentioned a horrific accident with his ankle or foot, comes back, has a healthy year, then you change a position. Um, Coming from a guy that has played everywhere but catcher in the major leagues, I know I made it look easy, but it's not easy. And then you got him going to man center field. It's not easy. And I know we say he's been there for a year and he shouldn't be losing balls, and it's not to pick on guys, but Max Clark the other day for the Tigers, one of the
It's
top
spring. Yeah.
prospects,
Yeah.
dropped 2. So from that standpoint, um, the greatest outfielders are going to have issues where, especially in spring training, Arizona, high skies. You're going to have issues where that may happen, but I say you got to keep the patience with him because, one, you see the upside of what he can bring, but 2, that doesn't mean that your patience has to be long with him because given that he's been in the big leagues this many years, you're right. The mental mistakes have to be limited. You can't
Yep.
not run balls out. You can't let at bats transfer into the outfield. And that's not to say you can't make errors, but you can't let those things continue to trickle on. And the little bit that I've seen, those are the things that you lose patience with. Now, struggles physically, that is something that I say to have patience with because I opened up with. It's not easy changing positions. Okay, you want him to come back healthy. All right, I'm healthy. I got to bang, but dang, now I got to learn a new position that is the most important position in the outfield. Not only that, I'm playing with probably guys that aren't really the greatest outfielders to the right and left
Yeah.
of me. So now I got to cover for people that are more natural outfielders than myself. Yes, I know my natural abilities should be able to take over, but there's nothing like repetition. When you're injured, when you're not playing every day, when you're not playing well, if you're not getting those reps, you can't expect to get better. So this spring, I think, is a big test for him, seeing the positives of hitting lefties right. Um, and you'd rather see him make those lose the ball in the sun in the first week. Now, if we're in the
Yeah.
last week of spring training, that's an issue. But I'm a firm advocate that mistakes are going to happen, and It's how you respond to those. And if you see his attitude responding better than what it's been in the past, I think that's what you have to take away. But at the same time, accountability. And I think that has to come not only from himself, even the team. And I think they did a little bit last year where if he didn't run, I saw it. You know what I mean? So those are things that tend to add on. If you see him not being pulled as much this year to that, that's maturity, that's growth. And as I said, he's only 26 years old. Yes, we asked these guys to be in their prime of 26, but I am a firm advocate speaking that when I was playing, the prime was considered 30. Now you got these guys at 26 that are still learning. You want them to that to me, that's not possible. And I just think you got to be a little bit more patient, but at the same time, that doesn't mean your patience has to be this big. Those moments that you need to be accountable, keep them accountable. And I think this is a big year for him because not only that, it's hard to produce when you're not playing on a team that's good.
Yeah.
When has he played on a good team?
He finally has protection now.
And I will leave you with that.
Yeah, that's where I look at it is the patience is thinner for me because you don't have to be the best player on this team anymore if you're Oneil Cruz. For the last 2 seasons, really every time since the moment he debuted, every game he's played in for the Pirates, he is where the opposing pitching staff's game plan begins. Yeah. How do we attack this guy? And once we figure out a game plan there, we'll adjust. And that includes when Brian Reynolds is in all-star form. Oneil Cruz is a scarier guy to face just because he can mishit a ball 400 feet. That's just how gifted he is. So now you look, he has the lineup protection. He has, their outfield could potentially be disastrously bad defensively, depending on the lineup. But there are still good young defenders in that outfield. Garcia, I think, can be a plus defender, and Mangum is a proven plus defender in the outfield. So there are things that everything that he needed help with to take a little weight off his shoulders, they have that now. They have bats that can hit left-handed pitching. They have bats that can provide slug. They have guys who can steal bases. They have guys who can play good outfield defense. So the pressure is off of you a little bit, which means you need to go perform. It is this year. And at the very least, you need to be as productive as you were in 2024. If that's your ceiling, then that's fine. If Oneil Cruz hits 20-plus home runs and hits, above 200, which he struggled to this past year. And you talked about the lefty thing, Mark. Go look at his splits against left-handers in the second half of 2024. He crushed them.
Right.
He crushed them in the second half. And that's why I was so surprised with his struggles against left-handed pitching last year, because he ended 2024 on such a positive note against that reverse split matchup. So I do think the patience is a little thin, where it's because this should be easier for you. Baseball is an incredibly hard game. I'm not discounting that. And I think Josh made a lot of relevant points. You are still young. You're 26. You've gone through a lot. This is really your first year of any sort of stability in your major league career, where you're not really coming off of an injury or some sort of position change or adversity of some kind. But that's it, though. There are no more excuses. This is your time to go out and perform. And I think him just simplifying his game will make him such a better baseball player. Even though the corner outfielders might not have a ton of range, there's no need to be Superman. Your pitching's good enough to pitch out of jams, and now you can win games that aren't by a final score of 2-1. Hell, you can score 3 to 4 runs every game now. And I think that the hitting approach can also be a lot better. I forget what coaches were talking about it. I want to say it was T. Brock and Tony Beasley were talking about it on an interview in the pregame before one of the spring training games this year, and how they were saying this guy just needs to be a contact hitter, because when he puts bat the ball, it goes faster than anyone who can hit a baseball. So just focus on contact.
And he'll steal
and
second
slug is going to become natural by just the way you hit the ball hard. Rather, you don't need to swing as hard as you can. You're strong enough and you get enough momentum when you turn that, a 105 exit velocity, it's not going to break your 117 record, but it's still pretty damn hard. And guys don't want to catch a ball that's hit that hard at them. Yeah. So I just think simplifying the game is going to make Oneil Cruz a lot better of a baseball player. And if that's ever going to happen for him in Pittsburgh, it's going to happen now. because they made a lot of additions that I think were strategically brought in to ease his challenges.
And one name that we haven't brought up, they brought in Marcelo Zuna,
Yes.
Another
veteran
player,
Latin guy.
A veteran,
Yes.
yeah, who's a power hitter who can say, hey, I've had these struggles in my career. This is how I overcame them. And you look at like Ozuna, his walk rate has shot up the last few years.
Yep.
So, like maybe he can share some of that wisdom that he tapped into. So, yeah, it's an exciting year for Oneil Cruz, I'd say.
Right. Yeah. Everyone's waiting for this guy to be, Ellie De La Cruz, if not better, right? Like they're going to be compared to each other, fair or unfair, because they are like a carbon copy of each other physically.
Right. Both 6'7",
and their names are almost the same too.
Yeah.
So like I get it, but at the same time, it's like, don't compare yourself to anyone, dude. You don't even need to be the best player on the Pirates. We just need you to be the best Oneil Cruz. Mm-hmm. And if you can be the best Oneil Cruz, who knows what that looks like? Because we haven't seen it yet. Maybe that's the best player in baseball. Maybe that's just a little bit better than 2024. Either way, if he's the best version of himself, this team's probably a playoff team this year. So that's where I look at it. Like the patience is worn thin, but the belief shouldn't be, because I do think that this is a situation that's far more advantageous for him compared to any other situation that he's entered a season in. So want to remind everyone to hit that subscribe button if they haven't already. We're on a mission to 3,000 subs. We can't get there without your help. So please give us a little love and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. And also check out our team store, the Bucco Territory team store. We've got a lot of great stuff there. It's almost a bit at this point how we're just reciting that. There's the hat, bag, and I believe the mug.
Next?
Mug?
The mug.
Yes, there it is. There we go. The Scan Me QR code stays there forever too. I like that. So, and I will be in Bradenton as well this for the remainder of spring training. So if you're down here, hit us up, hit me up. I'd love to meet up with you. Again, we want to remind everyone 3 shows a week from here on out: Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Wednesday will be our mailbag show. So tweet out your questions. I'll send out a tweet asking for questions. I believe probably Monday or Tuesday I'll send that out. And you can comment there. You can also email me. My email is nhiles@post-gazette.com. So we'll be answering your questions on Wednesday's show. Fellas, any final thoughts before we wrap it up?
I got nothing.
Another Connor Griffin home run today. We're recording on
Sunday.
So
yes.
He keeps going. 7 balls batted above 100 miles per hour this spring.
Solid contact.
Yeah, he's a superstar.
We'll see.
Yeah.
I'll be I'll be watching him in person tomorrow. I'll let you guys know if Connor Griffin's good at baseball. When I see him.
Yeah, keep us posted.
He's Platinum Key. He's Josh Harrison. I'm Noah Hiles. We're all signing off saying thanks for tuning in to another episode of Bucco Territory, presented to you by the Foul Territory Network.